All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So Joe Douglas just wrapped up his pre-draft press conference. Let's take a look at some of the answers he had regarding the New York Jets moving forward. Quick little disclaimer, though. The Jets didn't live stream this. They didn't release the video. Only small little video snippets along with the beat writers tweeting Douglas's responses. So with that said, let's jump right in. So first things first, this is Joe Douglas here. He never really reveals much. He's always trying to keep everything even keel, never try to, make headlines, not too low, not too high, all that kind of stuff. A lot of coach speak for sure. And the first thing that he said, was we definitely have 10 players that we're excited to take. And I feel like he says this every year, but I guess this is a good sign. In my opinion, this draft class is tailor-made for the New York Jets. It absolutely sucks that we don't have a second-round pick. If we did have that second-round pick, it would be really, really high. And, thinking about where this draft is at its strongest, tackle, wide out, the Jets could really use that second-round pick. But, of course, we don't have it. But there's so many good prospects in this class, and there's so many different options that the Jets can, so many different pathways that they can travel down, right? They can go with a wide receiver. They can go with an offensive lineman. They can go with Brock Bowers. They can go with a trade down. You can make an argument for a trade up, right? Malik Neighbors or Joe Alt or something like that, right? There's so many different, avenues that the Jets can travel down. It's really, really exciting. This is actually the first draft in a long time that I'm not super nervous and anxious for, right? I'm just kind of, I maybe that's going to change on draft day. It always does, but a week, really less than a week away, I'm not freaking out about it. Like, oh my God, this has to play out, or we need to land this one specific player. It's like, man, I'm really going to be cool. Honestly, going to be cool with 4, 5, and we just have so many different options. And I'm just so excited. I cannot wait for it. But moving on, Joe Douglas did say that they are having conversations this week about who the players are in the draft that would make them think about trading up in the draft. Again, I think there's really 3 players, in my opinion, that make sense to trade up for: Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, and Joe Alt. Now, I think, and look, I've seen the pushback with Joe Alt, right? He's not really considered this all-time great tackle prospect, but he's damn good. He projects well to the next level and whatnot, but he might not be a guy that the consensus would trade up for. Might be more so on the safer end as opposed to the high upside, top 3 tackle in football potential, but maybe more so around, this guy's going to be a top 10, top 12 starting left tackle in football for years on end. I mean, for me, that sounds great. I gotta be honest, when I'm looking at the Jets offensive line, or struggles rather, when I'm looking at the left tackle options that we've ran through just in these past couple of years, we're always getting hurt. We're always seeming to have to either move a guy's position or bring somebody up from the practice squad or put somebody on IR. Something is always happening at left tackle here. Safe sounds good to me. A high floor sounds good to me. So I do not mind trading up for Joe Alt. If he gets past Tennessee at 7, I really think you can make an argument to trade up with the Atlanta Falcons with spot number 8. Now, of course, Atlanta has to feel comfortable that the Bears will not go with the top defensive player, because if that's the case, maybe the Falcons will ask for more or they won't do it at all, because Atlanta's in a great position where they really need defensive help and they have their shot, they have their choice between every single defensive player in the draft. They could be thinking corner, they could be thinking pass rusher. Dallas Turner is the consensus favorite. I wouldn't be surprised though if a corner does go really, really high. But the bottom line is, I would consider trading up for Joe Alt. But with Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison, I do feel like you're going to have to shoot higher into the draft to go land. But both of those guys are game breakers, in my opinion. I think if the Jets land Harrison or Neighbors, that would be insanity. Especially with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football, especially with Garrett Wilson there to take some of the pressure, or to put more pressure on defensive coordinators. That, to me, is nuts to think about. I think I think Neighbors and Harrison are good enough to play in any offense in football and just win. They don't have to be schemed open or anything like that. I'm also a really big fan of Brian Thomas, but obviously I think you can get him at spot number 10. I don't think you're going to have to trade up to go land him. I personally wouldn't. I don't think I would move up for Odunze. I think if he's at 10, he will be the pick, though, for the Jets. But we'll see how this thing plays out. Yes, so Douglas actually also alluded to the fact that there is great flexibility for New York after the moves that they've made this offseason. Yeah, that's again, the silver lining of this draft. We can go in a bunch of different directions with Tyron Smith, with Morgan Moses, with already having Tyler Conklin on the roster, with bringing in Mike Williams, and by the way, a backup quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. We're not pressured into going down one specific positional route. We're not in a position where our hands are tied and we're like, dang, we're not in a position where our hands are tied and we're saying, man, we can only go after Brock Bowers, the one player that makes sense for us, or we're only targeting the top 3 wide receivers. No, there's so many different options available. So I do think Douglas makes a ton of sense here. I think he's spot on. Now, when talking about Zach Wilson, Douglas, again, didn't really reveal much of anything, but he did say that Zach is an asset. We're obviously open to trading Zach. There have been discussions, but nothing's really changed. And then in regards to drafting a quarterback on day 2 or 3, he said that I would love to be a quarterback factory and draft a quarterback every year. Now, man, the whole Zach Wilson thing, it's still up in the air. It's just super unfortunate, right? He just doesn't have any trade value. There's a report that came out suggesting that the Jets had multiple trade offers out on the table for Zach. I'm just not buying that. I feel like the Jets would have done it at this point. I mean, we're seeing what really good football players are going for in the trade market. Keenan Allen for a 4th, Stephon Diggs for a future 2. Every situation is different. But man, when you look at the backup quarterbacks, it doesn't matter that they're young. It doesn't matter that they have potential. It doesn't matter if they flashed. Right? Mac Jones went for a late round pick. Justin Fields, late round pick. A week before the NFL draft, I mean, a lot of teams are just saying, I just want to go get my guy. Like think about it. If you are a head coach or an offensive coordinator, right? And you are fantastic at calling an offensive game, you know how to develop quarterbacks, what would you rather do? Draft a quarterback in a couple days, whoever it may be, right? Take your pick, whether it's a first round guy or not. But even in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, I think you can really get solid backup options or developmental options that, in my opinion, Spencer Rattler, Michael Pratt, Jordan Travis, Keaton Slovis. I'm a massive fan of Bo Nix. I think Michael Penix needs to be talked about as well. Although with Nix and Penix, they still could go in round 1. But again, if you're a coach, do you say, all right, let's just go get Spencer Rattler. He's on a cheap rookie deal for the next 4 years, or Michael Pratt or somebody like that, somebody that we can mold and groom, or do we trade away a pick to go land Zach Wilson on a 1-year deal and have to pay him literally 4 to 5 times more in one season? That, to me, just doesn't make any sense at all. So if we do see Zach move, I feel like it'll probably be either after the draft, immediately, for a team that missed out on a young quarterback that also has, the want for Zach Wilson, the cap space for Zach Wilson, or it's going to be one of those situations where Joe Douglas and the Jets have to take or essentially pay most of Wilson's deal just to move him, to get a draft pick in return, or a pick swap, or what have you. Or, of course, the unfortunate situation where multiple quarterbacks get hurt on a team in training camp, and now they're strapped and they need to do something. So they're like, all right, let's last minute panic move. Let's just trade a 2026 or 2025 late round pick swap or something for Zach Wilson and try to see if he has anything. So again, Wilson just, to me, doesn't have much value at all at this point. Now, potentially drafting Brock Bowers at spot number 10 did come up, and supposedly Joe Douglas referred to him as a Swiss Army knife, right? Somebody who can do a lot of different things. And he also talked about how much stress a top-level tight end could put on a defense. Now, Bowers obviously does make some sense for the win-now Jets, right? He's a win-now player. He would give Aaron Rodgers a security blanket over the middle of the field. He would take pressure off of the other playmakers, specifically Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. He would stress the defense over the middle of the field, which I like, right? Really sucking the defense into the interior, which would hopefully in turn open up Mike Williams down the field if he's healthy and if everything is good to go, working off of play action, the money downs, third and fourth, goal line situation. Brock Bowers does make sense for the Jets. Personally, though, I'm in the offensive line camp. I'm not done building the offensive line. I'm going to continue adding until we have franchise tackles. And the Jets are in a great position where they could draft one at spot number 10 and have him sit behind Tyron Smith, somebody who does get hurt a lot, somebody who does miss time every single year, somebody who is 33. So and also somebody who is a great mentor and leader. So I feel like that's literally the perfect, the picture perfect situation for a young tackle to walk into, right? Where he doesn't necessarily have the immediate pressure of protecting Aaron Rodgers in year one. He'd have a great leader, a great teacher in Tyron Smith, somebody who's excelled in pass protection, and somebody who would come in with a lot of talent and have that time to develop. And also wide receiver. I think wide receiver is probably the Jets' number one preferred route, given the, I guess, depth of the position, given the lack of free agent moves outside of Mike Williams, but we don't even know if Williams is going to be healthy for the start of training camp. So we'll see. But again, going back to the first point, I'm not really worried too much about this year's draft. I just feel like so many, in other words, I think it's hard to miss. It's going to be really hard to mess this thing up if you're Joe Douglas. Like this, man, this like if you can have a perfect draft class, this is pretty much, like, realistically speaking, this is it. Like, oh, we really need help at tackle. We really need help at wide receiver. There's a generational tight end in this year's class that could make sense for you and could be there at spot number 10. There's developmental quarterbacks late, so if you want to take one there, you can. Like, this is laid out beautifully for the Jets. So, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I got some sweet content coming up here for draft week. I got a bunch of mock drafts that I want to do in each scenario, right? So I'm going to do 1 7-round mock draft with Brock Bowers at 10, 1 7-round mock draft with a receiver at 10, 1 7-round mock draft with an offensive lineman at spot number 10. Which I think is just going to be so fun. I think I might do those back to back. And then, of course, for the NFL draft, I'm going to be streaming that live with my brother. So super pumped up. I cannot wait. Should be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, go Jets.